This is Captain Ross from 3B's Captain School. In this video, we're going to cover Marlinspike as part of our deck video series. This is our Marlinspike Seamanship video in our deck series. So Marlinspike, or the art of seamanship that includes tying various knots, splicing, and working with line or rope. And what we're going to do in this video is identify natural and synthetic fiber, rope, and line, state how to measure line and wire rope, describe how to inspect, maintain, and stow rope or line, state how to secure a line to different fittings, describe parts of a line, and state the uses of a square knot, bowline, half hitch, becket bend, whipping, and a timber hitch. All right, so like I said, Marlinspike is the art of working with and handling lines and rope. When we use the term lines and rope, rope is the basic product or the raw form, and then in the maritime world, when you're using a piece of rope for a job, once it has a job on the boat, we call it a line. So I have mooring lines, the tow line, anchor line. Those are all sections of rope that have a job. So the two basic categories of line: natural fiber, and it's made with organic material. Plant material, it's got a lower breaking strength than synthetic and does not recover after being stretched. It has a higher likelihood of rotting if it's not stowed properly. And the types of natural fiber line you see are manila, sisal, hemp, and cotton. Synthetic fiber line is made of inorganic materials, has a much higher breaking strength than natural. However, synthetic line is elastic, so it kind of acts like a rubber band. And if you stretch it to the point that it breaks, it'll snap back just like a rubber band will, except with tremendous force. So you have to be really careful. You don't want to ever stand in line with a piece of line that's under tension. So we normally measure synthetic fiber and natural fiber rope by circumference. Wire rope is constructed using small wires that extend continuously through its entire length. These wires are twisted into strands, and then the strands themselves are laid up to form the rope. And wire rope is measured by diameter. Synthetic and natural fiber ropes measured by circumference, wire rope measured by diameter. All right, so we need to make sure we inspect, maintain, and stow our lines correctly. So all lines should be periodically inspected for wear, damage, such as chafing, kinks, and signs of shock loading. So I know if you have a piece of like double braided nylon line, which is made up of two parts, there's a cover and a core, and you use it, it takes a lot of tension all the time, or it gets shock loaded where it gets stretched almost to its limit and then is allowed to come back and get stretched and come back. The core and the cover will kind of almost weld themselves together. It'll get so much heat and you'll feel a big section of line that's really hard. It's not pliable any longer. That's signs of shock loading. You want to check the line for that and replace if you find pieces of line that are either chafed or kinked or showing signs of shock loading. As much as possible, you want to keep all lines free from dirt or grit, because they can kind of work themselves. The dirt or the grit will work itself into the fibers while the line is relaxed, and then each time it takes tension, it causes friction in there with that grit and can damage the line internally. You want to stow all lines out of direct sunlight and free from chemicals as much as possible. Don't stow wet. Synthetic stretches when put under a load, so you want to allow time to recover before you coil it. So if you've used a line, towed a boat with it, or you were coming into the dock and you used a line to spring in and it was under a lot of load, before you coil it up and stow it, you want to make sure you allow it time to recover. 3-strand synthetic and all right-hand laid lines should be coiled clockwise. So these are just some general rules for inspection, maintenance, and stowage of line. Now let's go over the parts of a line. So the first part we'll cover is the running or bitter end. And this is the working end of the line. So this is a line you're going to run through and tie knots and make off to a cleat. So the working end. Next we have the standing part. And this is the unused or belayed end of a line, like the remaining part of the line, the end that you're not working. So you can see in this diagram, it's coiled up here at the bottom. Then we have an overhand loop, and this is a loop made by crossing the bitter end over the standing part. We can see one up in the upper right hand corner of this diagram here. And then next we have an underhand loop, and this is a loop made by crossing the bitter end under the standing part. So we have a bitter end, standing part, overhand loop, underhand loop. We'll talk about securing a line to a fitting now. So if you have a bit, you want a complete turn around the near horn and then at least 3 figure-8s to make the line off. If you're making a line off to a cleat, a round turn and 3 figure-8s. So here's some common knots and hitches that we're going to talk about and use. The first we have is the bowline, and the bowline makes a temporary eye in a line. So ideally, you would splice a line or purchase a line that's already got an eye splice in it if you're going to use it as an eye. But if you want to make a temporary eye in a line, you tie a bowline. Half hitches are used to temporarily secure a line to an object. A clove hitch is the best knot for securing a line to a piling, a ring, or a spar. So depending on where you're mooring your boat up, if you have to secure it to a piling, you want to use a clove hitch. We have a figure-8 knot, and this knot is used as a stopper knot. So if you have a piece of line that you're using, you don't want it to pull through, a block or some other kind of apparatus on your boat, you tie a figure-8 or a stopper knot. The square knot or reef knot is what we use for tying or securing 2 lines of equal size. So if I want to join the 2 bitter ends of 2 different lines together and they're the same size or same circumference line, I use a square knot. If the lines are different circumference, I want to use a Beckett bend. So Beckett bends are used for securing lines of unequal size. And ideally you want to use a double Beckett bend. So for a double Beckett bend, you would just take the small line through twice instead of one time. Help secure it a little bit better. A timber hitch is used to secure rough material such as logs or planks or anything like that. So whippings we use to prevent the cut end of a line from fraying. So if I just cut the end of a line and left it raw, it would fray on me over time and be kind of useless. So we want to make sure we put a whipping on them. This concludes our video on Marlinspike Seamanship. Please check our YouTube channel for our other videos.